Welcome to the Dylantantes podcast.
I'm with Nina Goss. She was born and raised in New York. She earned her BA from University of Rochester, her MFA and PhD from the University of Washington, and she's widely published in numerous collections and journals on Bob Dylan. She co-edited 2011's Dylan at Play and 2017's Tearing the World Apart. She's presented her work in the States and abroad on Bob Dylan, and she edits the journal Montague Street. So just a few things on Dylan. It's impressive. So let's start off with the question, what is it about Bob Dylan?
I think about this a lot, and I don't know if I'm able to articulate this as effectively as I would like. But
Okay.
the thing that I'm never able to assimilate about Dylan is that he seems to have this infinite, ineffable resources that he can bring to bear on any style or persona or point or philosophical or existential point of view that he wants. So he seems to be incompatible with himself across his canon, but at every point there's a level of just remarkable, sublime creation that should be incompatible with what came before and what comes after, but the resources of creativity and expression that he has have almost never failed him.
That's fascinating. I think I feel that way about your work. That every
For
time
God's sake, this has to be edited out. So my example, to demonstrate
Okay,
this.
no, it's not
No, I
very-
wanted to
Okay.
listen to Blonde on Blonde.
Okay.
Listen to Blonde on Blonde all the way through.
Yes.
And then wait 5 minutes, and then listen to John Wesley Harding.
Okay.
And then tell yourself this is the same artist, the same man, months apart. These two visions, these two modes of song, these two languages, entire discourses are incompatible. It's not that they're different, they're incompatible.
Okay.
And he brings to bear these resources of expression and composition that are just unparalleled. And that's what it is about him.
Okay, so within that, do you still hear, and I know the answer, but do you hear a strain of a singular voice there? And I think I know the answer, but go ahead.
I don't know whether I do. I see the strain of a mode, perhaps,
Okay.
which is he's always in process. There's not a single work, there's not a single album, there's not a single song, there's not a single performance that has the quality of being fixed and certain. I feel that no matter what I'm listening to process and not statement, if that sounds abstract and pretentious, but that's the only consistency.
It doesn't.
There have been periods when his voice is not, the tam of his voice isn't what he wants it to be, but he's always able to work with the voice that he has, the throat that he has at any given time to suit the material that, and whoever said he writes with his voice, he doesn't write verbally, he writes orally, orally is spot on.
So what are you currently working on?
I am working on an essay for an essay on late style and Bob Dylan for an anthology on teaching Dylan. So I'm very interested in the field of late style.
So in 2017, you edited Tearing the World Apart with Eric Hoffman. Tell me more about that.
I originally began as a contributor to the volume, and then Eric Hoffman, as the months went by, he became overwhelmed with other work, and he wasn't able to be the hands-on editor for the text, and asked me if I would like to take that over in order to usher the project to completion. And I have a lot of editing experience, so I was able to take that on in in an efficient way. So I became the prime editor of the text. I brought in some new pieces, and so, yeah, so it was a great pleasure to work, because I am strongly committed to raising the profile of Dylan's post-2000 work. So it was a great pleasure to work on this with an international group of contributors and a range of methodology.
It's a great collection. So you've written quite a bit about Dylan in the 21st century, and you've said that you're committed to his post-2000 works, or his late career work. So what is it about that period that is worth exploring, that you find so fascinating?
So I think that later generations are going to have far better answers to this than we will. I think Dylan is one of the great artists of age, like Picasso or Wordsworth. I think that he is a voice of the peculiar potency of age that is not simply a desperate prolonging of youthful vigor. That's not what Bob Dylan is about. And also when he started his bricolage stealing method of composition, and that he's been able to sustain that and work with it in really elastic ways. And I think that he's really questioning what it means to be original in art, and he's doing that consistently in the last 20 years, and I never am tired of exploring that history and memory, how he plays in radical and transgressive ways with history and memory.
It's interesting because you, in your piece that you did, so we met in 2018, the Dylan in the 21st Century conference that was in Arras, and you presented on Dylan's revisionist art, and in the chapter, which I reread for this this discussion, you wrote that you used Roland Barthes, and you kind of overlaid, and I like that use of and you talk about bricolage and the stealing and the putting things together, and I think that I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's interesting. I had a thought and it went away, and we can put that in the discussion. I'm fine with that, but it's fascinating to me that you were that approach that you have that is constantly regenerating, that you're showing his regenerative abilities with pulling all of the disparate elements together. But you did say that revisionist art, that exhibit, was the worst thing Dylan has put his name on. Do you still feel that way?
I sure do. It's just awful.
Emphatic.
It is awful. And what I was hoping to do with my paper is show that what Bob Dylan is what we bring to him, and what he provokes in us often enough. No one else could have could take up that much space in a gallery with that crap. That's
what is this shit?
What is this shit? There you go. Yeah. Yes.
But I was tickled by that because, and then your exuberance in this answer too. You're just like, yes, I do feel that way. But it's that ability for us that even in the stuff that we hate, we can still, maybe hate's too strong, but that we dislike, or we can still look at it and look at our response to it as part of maybe.
And he's taught us, he has taught us how to live in the completely precarious space of what is real and what is not.
Right.
And so, and everyone who says to me, oh, Bob Dylan, he's such a fraud. And I say to them, right on. He is the most extraordinary fraud that has ever. He has brought authenticity to fraudulence in a way that no artist ever has, and that revisionist craft is us conditioned to bring those habits of thought to this. He's taught us how to do that.
But there are people that will look at that and be like, oh, it's genius because Bob Dylan did it.
But I think his iron work is really real. I think the iron sculptures that he's making, that is real. That is the only real visual art that he has produced.
Okay. Because there are discussions about his visual art, and maybe not the ironworks, but he's, making a new album, and he's doing ironworks, and he's painting, and folks wonder how he could do that, all of that at once. And so,
you think he's cheating?
If he's bringing authenticity to fraudulence, do you think he's cheating?
I do. But show me someone else that's cheating better. No, I think he's really manufacturing those irons.
He's got the pictures of him.
Yeah, he does, with the welding and the blowtorch, the whole flash dance thing going. Yeah,
and maybe that's part of the fraudulence.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think he is making. I think he makes more, of his time than you and I do. That's also possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's possible as well. And I think, too, with the latest, I can't think of the name of it, the latest exhibit that he did, the movie stills.
Oh, yeah. I don't
think that that's great, because he's taking a two-dimensional object or image and putting it into another two-dimensional image, and so he's not. I don't know that there's that much creation there, but it's still interesting that he's doing that.
I didn't think that. I felt that way about the Asia series.
Okay.
That was forgettable, and yeah. But,
what is the name of it? It's there, and it's a Latin word, or a play on a Latin word.
Oh, retrospectum.
Retrospectum,
yes.
Thank you. Good grief. We're going to have to edit that out, or maybe we'll leave it because it's authentic and we won't be fraudulent in our authenticity.
That's right.
It'll be fantastic. So you've written on Dylan in other periods as well, and so since I've known you, mostly I've seen your work on Dylan post-2000, and that makes sense that you're interested in that, but I saw you, we presented on a panel together where you wrote on Street Legal, 1978, and then you just did your brilliant paper on Dylan and the Beats, as well as the 21st century. So you've already said your favorite period is this period now.
Intellectually, but otherwise, I mainly want to get it inside the songs that speak to me the most. So I'm not good with periods. This period has a coherence to it that I think is so fascinating and so provoking. And then otherwise, it's really song to song.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so how do you approach each project? And you said you go song by song, but I'm always taken aback by how smart and how well you use theory, but in a way that I can hear you speaking when you write. And it's it's both academic and intellectual and abstract by being so personal that it's just, your work is so good.
The real answer to this, in the interest of authenticity, is I want to be current. I want strongly to contribute to and to promote real substantive intellectual work on Bob Dylan. I want our generation to be even though I'm a lot older than you, but our academic generation to be the bridge to the work that will be done on Bob, the assessment and the work that will be done on Bob Dylan when that thing happens that we don't talk about, that will never happen. Okay. And so I really want to be current and competitive in this, promiscuous market of Dylan writing. And so I have a very skeptical view of most contemporary theory, but I want to find ways to use it to play in this field and also do justice to the work that I want to discuss. So that's all that I can say.
Do you think that what's problematic is that because he's a pop figure, a pop culture figure, if I tell someone that I write about Bob Dylan, they're like, what is there to write about?
I know. Don't you always feel that little catch in your mind where you tell, I'm going to a conference. Really? And what kind of paper are you going to? Well, it's all about Bob Dylan, and I feel awful being an apologist for myself about that.
Do you feel awful for yourself or awful for the other folks who don't know? who I don't know, because
I feel awful for myself.
Okay.
But that's what I agree with Leonard Cohen, who said giving Bob Dylan the Nobel was like giving Mount Everest the prize for the highest mountain, which I totally.
Right.
Bob Dylan is way bigger than but it was like a little ticket. It's like a little card that I can carry around with me. I can say, this man won the Nobel Prize for Literature.
Right.
So while you're
plus list all the other
condescending
things.
to me,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Well, yes. So, yes, we have conferences about him. So that's...
Why is there a museum to Bob Dylan?
Yes.
Well, because he's America's greatest living artist. That's why.
Well, and that to me is an understatement.
I know,
so,
but
yes. But, I do understand that.
you have to bring people slowly onto the Dylan train, I guess. But it's just, it's frustrating, though, because he's a pop culture figure, there is so much out there on Dylan. And you have written about, and we have talked a little bit about how people will go through the excruciating minutia to list all of the things. And I think I had a conversation, I don't know if you were in that conversation when we were in Tulsa in June, but about how there are folks who will list all of the reference points, but then the list is good, but then what do we do with that list after that? If we know that he is, referencing or borrowing from Timrod or whomever,
right?
Then it's the why of that.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
more important.
Exactly. What are the effects of that? Mm-hmm. What does this mean about composition? What are the effects? What did it mean for you to have to go and read this? And how are you feeding this back into the work in a way that's opening the work up? That was a big thing for me when I was doing a paper on Scarlet Town, and I found all these references from John Greenleaf Whittier, a poet that I was not that fluent in, and then suddenly I have this new resource, this new way of looking at Dylan.
Right.
I look at Whittier's the span of Whittier's life and career is an interesting counterpart to, in terms of art and political activism, which now illuminates Bob Dylan in a new way. So you have to keep asking yourself, it's really hard work, being a serious Bob Dylan fan. It's really hard work. It's a lot of constant self-education. So there you go.
Yeah, and I always feel that there's a lot that I'm so far behind, that there's so much that I don't know. And the more I read, the more it's like pulling a strand that just keeps pulling.
Absolutely. And you have to keep having that. You have to keep bringing that humility and and sometimes it's really fucking exhausting.
it's overwhelming.
Too much work, man.
All right, so how do you reconcile being a Dylan fan with being a Dylan scholar?
So I don't understand or like this question.
Okay, that's fine. I borrowed it from Jim, so we can blame Jim.
I want to know how we're defining fan, that it's something I have to reconcile with. And if this is some quaint reference to pop culture, aren't we way past that?
We are, but here's the thing, Jim told me, don't make this too intellectual, and I was just thinking as we went off on our riff, I'm that ship has sailed. So.
Like, would you ask Camille Paglia, how do you reconcile being a Madonna fan with being a feminist investigator of Madonna? Would you ask her that? Because they're completely intertwined.
Right.
Well,
that was my answer. I said, are they separate? When Jim asked me that, I said, I don't know if they are separate.
I really don't understand the question.
Right. I think it's that there are casual fans that go and...
So, but then they're not, sweating bullets trying to get into academic conferences.
Right.
And then if they were, that's what they'd be.
They'd be Dylan scholars.
Yeah.
All right, but you're both, though, because you do go to concerts.
Well, I live in New York City, and I have the means to go to, numerous concerts. No, I know what you're trying to say. I know. But I really, truly don't understand what is it about Bob Dylan? Is it because he has this?
Because he's a Nobel laureate?
No, because he has this profile of being a rock star.
I guess so.
these divisions of culture, aren't we past that?
Well, yeah.
High and low, and this seems to me to be a middle-brow question, a question that's trying to divide to discourses that
is like
were
Adorno, who told us that there's no real division between disciplines, that they're all interchangeable.
Yeah, I just. Or is the question, am I incapable of being critical of Bob Dylan because I think he's...
Well, then answer that question. I tell my students that all the time. If you read a prompt and you don't want to answer the prompt exactly as it's written, figure out how to interpret it to answer how you want to.
But why can't... See, and then the older I get, the more tired I get of that idea. You know, Martha Nussbaum, the philosopher, in her book Love's Knowledge, where she writes about, using literature, she writes about the epistemology of love, of how love creates a certain epistemology. Why can't we bring that sort of thing? Don't you think you write better about Bob Dylan because of the affinity you have for his work?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you could write brilliantly and competently about other, and I'm sure you do. And
that's lovely. Maybe not true.
But I'm sure.
See, I'm just
but why doesn't that give us lenses and discipline and attention? I don't.
But
is it all about the concerts? I go to concerts and scream when he does. You know, it takes a lot to laugh.
But is that where you're a Dylan fan and you kind of release the investigate, the analytical part? You're just there to enjoy it. And maybe
I don't believe in that. I'm not interested. That whole passion and reason thing.
Yeah.
Aren't we past that too? Do I have to? You know. Yeah. Here's what when I started. You know, becoming infused with Bob Dylan as the greatest artist, and I see this man perform, and it was an experience I could not expect. And I thought, well, here I am. I have this degree, and I know how to put a paragraph together. Maybe I can bring these two parts of my life together.
Okay. So, how did you get into Dylan? What was your entryway into Dylan?
It was Chronicles.
Okay.
I went to. I was taking a class at the McCore Center, which is not far from where we are here at Fordham, which is an arts and culture center that's associated with the 14th Street Y. Right. And so I was taking a class there and something else, and I see signs for Grail Marcus was going to be talking about his book on Like a Rolling Stone. And at the time, I didn't know anything about Bob Dylan. I couldn't have named 3 Bob Dylan songs. I had never listened to him in high school when I was into rock music and going to concerts all the time, and I knew Grail Marcus was so famous. And I thought, here's my chance for $15 to hear this super famous critic talking about something that he knows about. And the pictures on the posters in the center were the cover of the book of Dylan in the studio, and I looked at that picture and I said to myself, I had no idea Bob Dylan was such a handsome young man. I had never seen a picture of him at that age. So I go to the talk, and some things about Marcus's attitude towards Bob Dylan strangely rubbed me the wrong way. I felt that he was, and that's as far as I will go. And I left the talk feeling very defensive about poor Bob Dylan, you know, like the third most famous and successful human being on the planet Earth, who needed me to feel sorry for him. And I went to Barnes & Noble and bought his book, Chronicles. And I started reading it, and 4 pages in, the entire world turned inside out. And there was only one reality, and that was that book. And that was where it all started.
And it's a different way than many of us come to Dylan.
Most people don't come through the...
Yeah, but Graylee Heron and I both came through language as well.
Oh, that's interesting.
My stepdad gave me a book of Dylan's lyrics, the pink one that's upstairs, or that was upstairs, and he had it, and he said, "Take this, brother, may it serve you well." And I was like, I don't know, 12 or 13 years old.
Wow, that's
and
so interesting.
And I'm sure Dylan was on it because he loves Dylan, but I didn't really consciously, I guess I didn't absorb it as much as I did like the Beatles and the other music he played, but I was just enamored of the language.
Isn't that interesting? And you couldn't hear them.
No.
You couldn't hear the music so it was just the pure text.
Language,
You weren't here. Oh, see, that's so interesting.
Yeah. I think I got Blood on the Tracks, which was my entryway into Dylan, which I think is a good entryway. But
it must, yeah.
Yeah.
But anything is. I always say that any door, you could walk through any door and get into Dylan. You could go see Masked and Anonymous and say, oh my God, there's almost nothing that he's done that doesn't make an ordinary sentient person say, oh my God, who is this man?
Yeah.
What kind of person is this?
Who created this?
Yes.
I remember you saying in France, more blood, more tracks. And every time I listen to that bootleg, I'm like, yes.
Yes.
So good. I want more of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I do. All right. So what other sort of music do you enjoy?
Yeah, I'm not very eclectic.
That's fine.
Besides Bob Dylan, I listen to the Rolling Stones and U2 and more Rolling Stones and some Leonard Cohen and then more Rolling Stones.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right.
The Rolling Stones bring me untrammeled joy. Uncomplicated, untrammeled joy all the time.
Okay.
So there goes all my intellectual credibility.
I don't think so. See, there's the reason and the passion.
Yes.
So how does that music relate to Dylan?
I don't know. Oh, you can hear Mick Jagger talking on in the studio when he comes to visit Bob and more. Well, I don't think it has to.
I don't think it has to either. It was a question that to keep this lighter than we were discussed, or our discussion led us.
I'm a child of the 70s, and so all I did was listen to rock music and go to rock music concerts all the time, and then so.
All right. Before we go, you edit Montague Street. Will you
that's
tell me?
Defunct.
It's defunct. Okay.
Yes, the work of that. I started that project with my friend Lucas Stensland, and then he wasn't able to continue it. And so to do the whole, I have no graphic experience. So for each issue, I would have to get someone to do the layout for free, and that. It was exhausting work. It was expensive and exhausting work. I'm very proud of the, 3 issues that we did. I think they're, really strong compendiums of writing, and I believe very strongly in in theme journal, theme issues, and Rob and I tried to kind of steer the Dylan Review towards theme rather than just an assortment, and that wasn't the direction they wanted to go. But
might you do it digitally now that we live in this digital age?
I still have to do all the work, and it's exhausting, and I'm a little tired of editing. I would like to do as much as I can of my own work than midwifing other people's.
Fair point. Anything else you want to say? This has been delightful.
What's the last song you want to hear in your life before you shuffle off this mortal coil? Like, what are the songs that you say I own this song? What are songs you feel that way about?
I will share a very personal story. So when I went to see my friend Carrie, who was my Dylan friend, he passed away in 2008. He died of cancer at 38. And he and I were sitting, he had an apartment above a garage, and we're sitting on the deck outside of it after a Fish concert. And he was playing a bootleg of Love Minus Zero. And I just cried crocodile tears, and I said, I want to be that woman.
Oh, is that? Oh,
and
isn't
he
that
said,
interesting?
You already are.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
And it's such a beautiful memory that's one of the songs that I would want to hear. And then, there are just... Here's where the emotional part, not the intellectual.
Right.
Forever Young, because it makes me think of my nephews. What about you?
I and I. That song is just a mystery of mystery of. Oh my God!
But what's the last thing you want to hear? Is that such a?
Because I don't understand it, and it's beautiful, and it's right at the edge of the numinous, that song.
You can sink down into it, and just bathe in it until you're pruny, I guess. But no, it's just until you just, that's a good one.
What's a great moment you've had at a show? Like, what's something indelible that
Oh, my friend Jason. We went to see Dylan. It was Jason and Carrie and I went to see Dylan in, there were two. Because I think if I don't mention the other one, I might be in trouble. But, so I was in a funk about something, and he just grabbed my shoulders and said, "How can you be upset? We're going to see Bob Dylan." And then the other, David, early on when we were dating, he got me front row seats to see Dylan. And that, for him, I think, was an act of love because he doesn't love Dylan.
And that's a lot of money any way you look at it. Yes, that's a huge, that's a lot of commitment and a lot of, that's wonderful.
And it was fantastic. It was a great show. And so, what about you? What's your favorite moment?
I was at when Modern Times came out, and Ain't Talking to me was just this world that I just got into, and I could never stop talking and thinking about Ain't Talking. And I was at a show here at City Center, which is also just a few blocks from here, and Tony comes out and sits down. He has a cello, and I think, well, that's interesting. And here it starts, the first notes of Ain't Talking, and that was the first time he ever did the song live.
What's the strange? But seeing him like being, in the front row and being able to like.
I know the front row thing. That's a big problem because once you've sat in the front row, nothing else will do.
Like
even the second row. I know, that's because I have sat in the front row, in the second row, and once even the second row is not good enough.
What's the strangest Dylan concert you've ever been to?
We went to. In Milwaukee, he was a headliner at some festival, and Willie Nelson played, and then it was one of the summer shows, it was a huge festival, and everybody there was a Willie Nelson fan, and they were all hammered, and it was just this bad scene with fights, and no one was paying attention to Dylan.
I saw him.
I don't know if that counts as strange.
It's strange because of the audience, because mine is similar. There's nothing really strange about Dylan ever when I see him.
No, that's true.
It's more when I look at the people around me. He played the Houston Livestock and Rodeo Show in 01, 02, 03, around there. And it was just a strange set. It was...
I know. In weird places that he plays.
Yeah, and people just were trying to dance.
And
it was just really strange.
I know. And what they were all expecting when they came is that you'd be stand in the front of the stage with this acoustic guitar and sing "Blowing in the Wind" to them, and then it was the.
Well, we had that, and when we saw him in March. There were people who were like, "Do you think he's going to do Blowing in the Wind?"
Isn't that something? I'm like, "Hello, it's 12.
And even if he does it,
don't you have the internet at home that this is not what's going to happen?
And it's not going to be how you want it to be
at all.
either.
And you have it's so easy for you to find out that this is not going to be.
Listen to what he's doing. That's not, even if he does it will probably
it's not going to be what you
like this.
Yeah.
And then one guy was waiting for the encore. I was like, there is no encore.
It's gone. We're going home now. It's over, honey. Yeah. We're going home now.
I'm glad you saw him.
I'm glad.
Just be thankful you experienced this.
I know.
It cracks me up. All right. Anything else you want to add? This is so delightful.
No, unless there's something you want to talk about your own personal self.
No. All right.
So you can turn this off.
I can turn it off.
Thank you for listening to the Dylantantes podcast. Be sure to subscribe to receive the Dylantantes directly to your inbox. And please share on social media.